Hey guys, welcome back to 9 to 5 Tactical, and today we will be doing our 1000 round review on the Staccato HD P4. But before I get further into this video, I'd like to thank our subscribers for supporting us so far. As you know, this HD P4 was paid by us and this video is not sponsored. If you'd like to support us more, you can check us out on Patreon to support us through there. But if you're not able to support us on Patreon, that's fine too. Leave a like, share, and subscribe to help us on the YouTube algorithm. So with all that stuff out of the way, let's actually get into the review of the HD P4. With the specs, the gun does weigh 32 ounces. The capacity is 18+1, chambered in 9mm. The trigger weight is between 4 to 4.5 pounds. The barrel is a 4-inch bull barrel available in stainless steel and DLC. The lower frame is made out of steel, hence the weight, why it weighs 32 ounces. The dimensions is 7.6 inches long, 1.6 inches thick, and 5.5 inches tall. Features a full Picatinny rail so you can fit any weapon mounted light that you want. As for the MSRP, the one we have is the standard version, so that's going to run you about $24.99. If you want the preferred one, that is going to cost you about $2,700. And if you want the premium, that is going to cost you about $3K. A nice new thing about the HD P4 is that it now takes Glock mags. In traditional fashion, on 9 to 5, we'll kind of give you an unboxing to show what it's like to pick one of these up for yourself. So what you do get is a pretty nice range bag here that says Staccato on it, and then also this is made out of Velcro here, so if you get any like patches or drill patches you want to show off to your homies and let them know how much of a better shooter you are than them, you can put them right here. It has a nice zipper system here and carry handle before I forget about that. It features 2 magazines here, and it kind of is weird that it only comes with 2 magazines, but you see a third option here. But what's nice that this is all Velcro, so if you did want to move this anywhere around the bag, you could. And of course, what's also included is your basic safety manual and inspection tools and all that stuff, as well as a safety lock to keep anyone from actually using your firearm, and a safety flag. Of course, you can use this when traveling, so TSA does not question your intentions. And that's it. Always forward, by the way. Now getting into our first category, starting with out-of-the-box value. This usually entails, did everything that came with the firearm itself, did you actually get everything that you needed and you didn't have to actually spend extra money elsewhere to fulfill your needs? And for this category, we actually all gave it a 9 out of 10. Now the reason why I give it a 9 out of 10 is because of these few issues that I find wrong. Is that, one, they gave you only 2 magazines, and if you want more than 2 magazines and get 4 magazines, you actually have to go up an extra tier to the preferred package and end up spending extra, I think about $200 just to get 2 additional magazines. And the worst part is that these magazines aren't like your standard 2011 magazines where they cost around $70. These are actually around $30, I believe, and they are like your traditional Glock magazines, except they have a metal housing and a plastic base plate. And I don't see why they couldn't have thrown a third one in there, given that the price is a bit more than the standard P, and the magazines are also cheaper to manufacture. So kind of an L there. Of course, you know, Staccato using their name brand to get an extra few dollars out of us. And the second part of why I deducted 1 point is that it does not come with the optic plate for free. And not really for free, because like I kind of think of it as it was included in the purchase price of the firearm. And as you know, all Staccatos are pretty pricey, and the fact that it doesn't even come with an optic plate kind of sucks. And I'm not expecting it to come out with a set RMR plate right off the rip, because it would suck if you had a different optic that didn't use an RMR cut. What I would expect to see, hopefully in the future, as Staccato implements this, is a serial number program, kind of like what Walter and H&K does, where you actually send in your serial number after you purchase your firearm, and then you can actually get an optic plate of your choice depending on what optic you are running. And I don't see, after how much money you've already spent on something like this, why you can't even do that. That for being a full-size pistol being made for duty or competition, that it doesn't come with a flared mag well. This one we actually had to purchase an additional $70 on top of the existing price of the Staccato. So it was kind of weird because the existing P 4.4 inch that's out there currently actually comes with a flared mag well, but the HD P4 does not come with that, and you have to pay extra money just to get this. And given that this gun actually costs more right out the rip, and it doesn't come with that for being a full-size gun. It's kind of weird. I do kind of have this philosophy where it is a full-size gun. It's usually made for duty, not necessarily concealed carry given the size. I don't see why it couldn't have come with a flared mag well.
Next category is going to be ergonomics. For this one, we all actually gave it a 10 out of 10 all around. The Staccato HD P4 was definitely a step in the right direction when it came to upgrading ergonomics for shooters. So our typical fashion here, I'm going to start up here at the top and work my way down. A couple of things they changed, especially going to be the serrations here. Serrations are actually pretty similar to the old ones. So comparing it to the old Staccato Ps, the new HD line actually has 4 cuts for serrations compared to the 3 that the old ones had. So in reality, they just improved it a little bit more, giving you a little more serrations, just like how we actually asked for in the previous review. Super grippy, really had no complaints whatsoever. Front and rears were excellent on these Staccatos, so I'm glad they transferred that over from the old models to the new models. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Moving to the back here, you're gonna start noticing some significant changes that they made to the HD line, starting with the safety selectors. Safety selector is still fully ambidextrous, just like the older models, but this one is slightly thinner compared to the older Ps we had. You'll also notice it's actually missing a grip safety here, which actually allows us to get a higher purchase on the firearm with your primary hand, which is pretty nice. I think that was one of the gripes that people have with the 1911 platform or 2011 platform, is that it tends to have a higher bore axis compared to other firearms out there. So another pro about missing the grip safety there is actually going to be the fact that it's easier to shoot with gloves. A lot of people actually tend to pin their grip safeties on the previous 2011 models. It's because they did not like it there at all. They felt that was a little bit redundant. So Kyle actually decided just to completely take that out completely. That way, completely eliminating that issue for everyone pretty much. The other thing you'll notice here is that there's actually the side releases come back a little further to make it a little easier to hit with your primary thumb. One of the biggest gripes people had shooting the 2011s is the fact that they could not reach the side release with their thumb with one hand. You actually had to train to hit it with your support hand thumb. So Staccato decided to try to actually fix that by mimicking the tri-arc design here, allowing you to hit it with one hand. Can be one of the biggest changes here on this firearm. It's gonna be the fact that it's actually fully ambidextrous, you'll see here. So on the right side here, my primary hand, I can actually hit it with my index finger. Same as over here on the other side, you'll see you can actually hit it with my thumb. Pretty darn nice, I'd say. Definitely one of the biggest things we liked about this new firearm. The magazine release is also something else they changed here. You'll notice it's actually a little bit slimmer profile compared to the usual circle design they had on the previous Staccatos. Something that we thought would actually kind of be an issue, but actually we found it to be pretty nice. It actually has some texture on there compared to the other ones that didn't have that at all. So hitting the mag release was actually no issue for us whatsoever. Magazine release also is reversible, so if you want to move it to the left side, you absolutely could. Unfortunately, it's not fully ambidextrous all the time, but I don't think it's too big an issue for people. A lot of people are usually just fine swapping to the other side if they are left-handed. Something else they did not change is actually going to be the grip texture. It still has that normal Staccato like sandpaper-like grip they have on all their new models. Something we really liked about the previous ones as well. So say kudos to them for, like I said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So now, one thing they did kind of make a little change on that they don't really mention is actually going to be the trigger cut here, the undercut. So it does have a more pronounced single undercut here that isn't really seen as much on the previous models. Maybe ever so slightly, but this one definitely has a more pronounced profile to it. A little side note that people don't really talk about the new HD line is that there's actually this little like contours here next to the side release. So one thing that we actually noticed was that Zach, especially when he shoots his firearm, he tends to have a thumbs forward grip, and that actually acts more like a ledge there. So Staccato, the new HD line, actually kind of has like a placebo like thumb ledge right there. You can actually put it there and help you drive the gun down while you're shooting. So not really talked about ever, but something that we thought was pretty cool they added in. And of course, when it comes to the grip angle, the new HD line does take Glock mags. So one of the biggest worry people had was whether or not they changed the grip angle to more a Glock style or sticking with the normal 1911-2011 grip angle. Happy to say this does follow the normal 1911-2011 grip angle that is Staccato is well known for. The angle comparing to the other ones look kind of different when you're looking at it straight up, but you notice here the back strap, comparing it to the other ones, is a little bit longer to kind of allow Glock mags to be put in there no problem while still maintaining that grip angle. So the last thing I'll mention for the ergonomics is actually going to be the size of the grip. So this is a full-size grip here, and you'll notice I don't have the biggest hands on the channel, but I definitely have some thick fingers, and it actually reaches just down there towards the bottom. It actually hugs the flared mag well pretty well. Now if you compare it to the older Staccato models here, we have a Staccato XC that actually has normal full-size grip, and you'll notice that there is actually a significant gap here here showing that the full-size grips on the older models are actually still longer than the new ones. So they kind of shortened it up, trying to make it hug your hand a little better. So as well as the grip being a little shorter, it's actually a little bit slimmer as well. So I'm not trying to flag myself there. But if you were comparing this to the older Staccato models, the new HD line is well known to be a little bit slimmer. So it actually allows more people to get a natural wraparound grip with their primary hand. So a lot of people actually seem to like that, having a little slimmer profile, kind of following the M&P line being a little bit longer than it is wide, giving you more leverage while you're shooting. Overall, we think the ergonomics on the new Staccato HD line is very good. They made a lot of steps in the right direction, so that's why we gave it a 10 out of 10.
So next category is going to be trigger. The three of us actually gave this category a 10 out of 10, and let me show you why. So something new with the HD line is that they actually added a firing pin block, which made the trigger just a little bit mushy. And as you guys can see here is that I'm going to take up the pre-travel just a little bit to hit the wall. And as you can see there's just a little bit of mush. And the reset right there, just a little bit of mush. Now with this trigger having a little mushiness to the break, we are still able to achieve the same level of performance as our original Staccato Ps that we have here on the channel. Since this did not hurt our performance at all, that is why we gave this a 10 out of 10.
For this next category, it's pretty self-explanatory. It is sights and optics, and for this, we all gave it a 10 out of 10. So let's talk about the iron sights first. The front sight is a blacked out front and the rear sight is forward facing. Unfortunately, if you did want the night sights or the tritium night sights, you do have to go get the preferred package, which is an additional 200. That does kind of suck. However, hopefully in the future they do have the pistol builder for the HD lineup. Unfortunately, right now it's just not there yet. Maybe that's just because the lineup is so new. But the benefits of the forward facing is that you do have a full sight picture on the rear here, which is pretty nice. We would think like, oh, what's the difference between moving it to the front and the back? Something we've noticed that we just had a way better clarity when shooting with the forward facing rear posts. Another nice benefit is that this does kind of actually reduce the carbon buildup onto the front of the glass. It acts as like a nice little shield. You can see that on camera. I can show it the best I can. It's not foolproof. There could be still a little bit of carbon, but definitely significantly reduces the buildup over time. And I'd say the last benefit from this is that when you do rack it off of items, you can actually rack it off the front sight here instead of actually racking it off your optic and potentially hurting your optic, as the optic is going to be a lot more expensive than your rear sight posts. The next benefit of having the forward facing is actually reduces the malfunctions happening with your sight hanging too far forward, close to the breech face. I don't have an SRO to kind of demonstrate that, but I can show you of the previous existing model, the XC. Basically, the sight would hang forward over the breech face, and then when you shoot around, it would cause malfunctions, having some failure to extract. Obviously, with the new model, having the forward-facing rear sights, it does not allow your sight to overhang like in the previous model. The next benefit of having forward-facing rear sights is that when your optic does fail on the range, as all things eventually will, is that when you do use your iron sights, something we did notice is that it's actually a lot easier to pick up on your iron sights through your optic glass. You can see right there how clear it is through the optic. And the height of it is almost like co-witness. So if you did want to get a good reference of where your dot would be, the irons will be almost co-witness perfectly right on top of the red dot. So what's new for the HD lineup with the optic mounting system is that it actually uses the host system. Unfortunately, you can't really see that here with the MPS, but what the host system does is that it actually uses the mounting screws that go through that red dot all the way down through the plate and threading it directly into the slide. So instead of having like 4 screws, 2 for your mounting plate and 2 for mounting your optic, it actually uses the same screw and reduces the points of failure. However, with the Acro P2 mounting style that is used here on the MPS, it does use 3 screws still because of how it's mounted through here with a side mounting screw. You just cannot avoid that with how the red dot is set up. But so far, with over 1,000 rounds in, we have not had any issues with the MPS coming loose. As of right now, the HD lineup does not have any fiber optic options available. If you are really interested in that and you don't really like having standard iron sights, right now, there is no pistol builder option like I mentioned before, so you cannot get that. Maybe in the future there will be aftermarket solutions to add fiber optics. I will say for sure about fiber optics is that over time they do get dirtied up pretty easily. So like most of the fiber optics we have on our Staccato Ps, they are like completely blacked out. So that's why I think Staccato probably went with blacked out fronts, because most people are probably running red dots on their pistols, and people don't really care if it gets blacked out. So we didn't deduct a point from that because of it having different iron sights. So we still kept that 10 out of 10. So far the optic mine system has been robust, and we have been enjoying the forward-facing rear posts.
This category is going to be magazines, and for this one we each gave it a 10 out of 10. Staccato HD P4 comes with 2 mech guard magazines, kind of a new design from their previous setup. Obviously this is a Glock style footprint as well. The only thing different is that they actually made them out of metal, so pretty nice. The base plates themselves are still made out of plastic, and you look at the back here, the indicators start at 5 and go all the way down to 18. 18 is correct, so it actually does 18 plus 1 instead of the 17 plus 1 that you traditionally see in Glock 17 magazines. So normally I would knock off a point for having plastic base pads here, but honestly after 1,000 rounds doing a lot of reels with both these magazines, honestly there is very little wear marks at all. We've dropped it on concrete, we've dropped it on even gravel before, really no issues whatsoever. It's been 100% reliable for us. And since it does actually take Glock mags, it actually is reversible, so any kind of Glock 17 mag will fit in this Staccato HD P4, same as these mech guard mags fitting in the Glock 17 line as well. The only difference is that these ones have 18 plus 1 while the Glocks have 17 plus 1. That would also include P-mags as well, so P-mags do function in the Staccato itself. Fully up to interpretation whether you think those are reliable or not, but they are significantly cheaper than either of these magazines. Now for the Staccato branded mech guard mags, they do come in at 30 galactic credits, so it is pretty cheap compared to the older style $80 magazines that you got from the previous generation. Now currently in July 2025 when we're recording this video, Staccato does not have 20 or 21 round magazines just yet for the Staccato HD P4. They only have the 18 rounders. But overall, I think the magazines are very good. They were super reliable for us, so kind of forcing why we all gave it a 10 out of 10.
Next category is going to be felt recoil. For this category, Dom and I both gave this a 10 out of 10, while Brandon gave this a 9 out of 10. And of course, Staccato makes very soft shooting guns, and I thought this gun shot very well for a 4-inch barrel. I believe that having a full metal frame and a full length dust cover in the front definitely helped with the felt recoil. I also think the aggressive grip texture helps the gun shoot very soft. As I'm not fighting the gun under recoil, the gun definitely stays in my hand without any slippage, and that is why I gave this a 10 out of 10.
So the next category we have is weapon handling and manipulation. This does kind of have some overlap over felt recoil and the ergonomics, but this is actually putting all of that into practice. So why did we give weapon handling and manipulation a 10 out of 10? Well, starting off with this gun is that now it has full ambi side controls, which before in the older model like the XC we have, the XC here does not have a ambidextrous slide release, while the new HD model does have an ambidextrous slide release, and they are the same size on both sides of the gun, which is really nice. I know Brandon on the channel, he actually uses his index finger over here on the right side of the gun because his thumbs are a bit too short to reach the slide release with his primary hand. So it does allow him to get pretty fast and consistent reloads without having to break his grip as much. The next on the side controls is the safety selectors. They are somewhat of a thinner profile. I think the reason why they went with a thinner profile was so you can actually hit the slide release now with your primary hands. It kind of makes sense why they would do that, because the slide release on the older models were a bit wider and they would actually completely obstruct hitting the slide release with your primary hand. Another thing that's a little different is the mag release size. I do actually find that is a bit nice to have the grip texturing there when you're actually reloading. It is a nice point of reference to have. I don't really feel like it actually helps with your grip per se, but it is a nice feature to have. I don't know if I can show it on camera here with both the guns, but you can see here with the XC is definitely significantly wider, and this is definitely not as high as the position here on the HD, and the HD is definitely thinner. So with all those combined and this ambidextrous controls, I think all of us were able to get some pretty spicy reload times and all that stuff. And when we were actually doing build drills, we were actually all able to get sub 2s pretty confidently with the HD. So that's kind of why we give it a 10 out of 10. We didn't notice any reductions in performance. This gun just handled super well.
On to comfort and concealability. For this category, Dominic and I both gave it a 6 out of 10, while Zach gave it a 7 out of 10. So just a couple points as to why I gave it a lower score. Just probably starting with the weight of the gun. Obviously, this is a full steel gun. Even the frame itself is made out of steel, and it's pretty heavy. Now, obviously, if you have that inside your waistband, unless you're having a really comfortable belt, you're definitely going to feel it after a while. Now, of course, the gun by itself is 32 ounces. Now, you're not even counting in ammo as well. So if you add in 18 plus 1 rounds into this firearm, it's going to be a pretty hefty gun. Next is going to be about the grip texture. For the majority of the time, we actually like the more aggressive grip texture, but something that we all actually noticed was how this was actually more of a fine sandpaper feel to it. And after a while, you definitely feel that rubbing away at your tummy. I think even myself and Dominic both felt this pretty harshly. I don't think Zach actually felt this. That's also why he gave it a point back. The texture really did not bother him that much. For us, it definitely did. Another point loss actually comes from it being a hammer fire in general. Of course, with hammer fire, they tend to have beaver tails. So this one absolutely does. If we're comparing it to the older model here, there is definitely a design difference. You can see how they actually made it more of a rounded off design, probably made more towards comfortability there. But honestly, as I was carrying it inside the waistband, I felt absolutely no difference between this one and the older models. Now, if you compare this to a striker firearm, they don't tend to have this beaver tail at all. That would absolutely make it a lot more comfortable. The last point of deduction would actually come from actually just being a full size in general. The grip length here, with it being a full size grip, does make it a little bit harder to conceal, so it's a little bit easier to tell when someone's carrying this. Mind you, this does have the flared magwell that we bought separately. Unfortunately, you do have to buy the flared magwell separately from Staccato now. But imagine if you take this off, it would be a little bit easier to conceal, but still nowhere near as easy as like a compact firearm, like maybe like a Glock 19. All in all, didn't really give it too high score all around, just because with it being a hammer-fired firearm, fully steel, with it being super heavy, just not really that easy to conceal and not very comfy to carry.
Next category is going to be aftermarket support, and the three of us actually gave this category a 10 out of 10. With this new HD lineup being so new to the market, there isn't actually that much aftermarket support. But we believe that there will be some coming down in the future. With previous 2011 models being so customizable, we see no reason why there wouldn't be any aftermarket support for this firearm. We do know that you can get the grip stippled for better grip texture. You can get the barrel and slides Cerakoted and ported, and we are pretty sure that the aftermarket support will catch up to this firearm, hopefully to bring in something new like metal grip modules.
For the last category, we have the price, and Zach and I, we gave this a 9 out of 10, and Brandon gave it an 8 out of 10. So why did we deduct a few points on the price? Well, for being a full-size gun and already spending in the mid 4-figure range, you're not getting a flared magwell included. They're actually requiring that you spend an extra $75 just to get that. And for this being a full-size pistol, kind of made for duty or competition, not having a flared magwell does kind of suck, and you're already paying a large sum of money for this. The next one we have is the optic mounting plate system. Obviously, it's great with being the host mounting system. However, what does kind of suck, I wish for the price, it was set up like H&K and Walters, where if you send in your serial number for your firearm, that they would send you optic plate free, as if it's included with the price of the firearm already, and then it still gives you that freedom of choosing whatever footprint for your specific optic that you're running. And another reason why we deducted a point is because for it taking Glock mags and the Metgar magazines being significantly cheaper to manufacture, and they still couldn't give us a third magazine out of the box, does kind of suck. Now, where I guess it kind of gained some points is that you are getting pretty good value for performance, I guess, with the pistol. Adding in the drop safety, even though it wasn't that big of a concern, I don't think many people are dropping it like this specifically and causing the inertia to drive the striker pin down. However, it is nice that they added that and didn't really hamper the performance of the gun. Unlike a certain other company we know that refuses to address it, even though there's a lot of issues still happening. So with all the 10 categories summed up, Brandon gave it the lowest score of 92. I give it in between at 94, and Zach, with the highest, like usual, gave it a 95. And with the total average divided by 3, that gave us a 93.66. Well, that is the end of our 1000 round review on the HD P4. But as you guys know, we're big Staccato fanboys on the channel. We love our double stack 1911s or 2011s, that trademark name by Staccato. If there are any other similar platforms that are a double stack 1911 that we haven't checked out in the market yet, let us know in the comments below. We'll see if we can get our hands on one. And like what we always say in our videos, go out there and train, get good so you can stay good. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next week.